Hello everybody, my name is Mr. Lobob, and today I wanted to tell you a bit about forced creativity, something that I am truly fascinated by, and I think it's absolutely great, and I want to tell you why here now. Because I've been doing some thinking. I wanted to do I just want to explain it kind of, because I think it's super helpful for people who are struggling with creativity. It's essentially the concept of creativity through problem solving. And that some of the most creative concepts and ideas came from the lack of ability to do it more easily. So, for example, things like early video games used to use all of these crazy different tricks to save any little piece of space that they could, because they had so little space to work with. And so they figured out all of these creative ways to work around it. And that created some really interesting problem solving. And so I've been trying to do that kind of I'm really bad at breath management. I've been trying to do that with my storytelling, basically, where I will look for problems or try to create problems for myself to try to work around. And kind of throwing gears into my own projects just to see what kind of creativity could come out of it. And for example, the main thing that I wanted to talk about today, which is a shapeshifter. Now, I've been thinking a lot about shapeshifters and about the fact that most shapeshifters I've seen are able to change from one person to another without any change, with total disregard to mass. And mass is a really important thing. If you're not aware, you cannot create or destroy mass, or matter, I suppose. And there is a certain something to things like fire, which is a transfer of matter, but it's not creating or destroying. And I've been trying to figure that out, because I think there's a better way to do shapeshifters where it does account for mass. And that was the problem that my forced creativity wanted to work out. And so I was thinking about, what if you could shed the matter? If you're an 100-pound shapeshifter and you wanted to turn into someone that was 200 pounds, you don't want to be someone with the size of a 200-pound person that weighs 100 pounds. You don't want to just expand like a balloon, because then you're super fragile and you're super, it just doesn't work out very well. And there's more creative ways to deal with the problem. And so, what I'm trying to do is essentially, what if you were able to shed the matter? And so, most shapeshifters are able to change what clothes they're wearing, but it's generally still a part of who they are. So they're not able to make a hat and then take off the hat, because also, since they don't take mass into account, they could just create infinite hats, right? Like the Dr. Seuss book. And so I try to avoid that as well. And so, what if when you take off your hat, you weigh one hat's worth less? Let's say you make a 1-pound hat somehow. You take off the 1-pound hat, and now you're 99 pounds. And then the obvious question is, well, how do you regain the mass? You regain the mass just like anything else can regain mass. By eating. I have no clue if any of this is audible, because it's very windy, and I know how wind affects microphones. But anywho, so you take this concept of being able to shed and gain mass, where it's almost like resource management at that point, which is a concept in games that I really enjoy. But then you have to talk about things like, oh, well, how much can you shed before you die? And I think this is another thing that's really interesting to me, I don't know if that's a question that should be answered, because if there's only one of these shapeshifters, he wouldn't test how small he can get by fear of death, unless there's something like a pain or a weakness that gets stronger and stronger as he goes that would warn him about said death. Another thing would be like, well, at what point does the matter become part of him that he is able to manipulate? And I think digestion is probably a good point, but I think that's very abstract. Like with most stories, you have to kind of draw some lines there, but I don't think they need to be solid lines since it's a story. There can be some mystery around that. Another thing would be like, how much is he able to completely change himself physically? Like, does he need organs, or is he just some magical form, essentially? I'm going to get out of this person's way. And I'm not sure. I think those are all good questions to ask, and I know that there are questions that I am not asking that other people could be asking about this character. Another thing that I think would be a really important rule would be if he loses contact with said matter, it just becomes that thing, whatever it was, permanently. So if he takes off the hat, gives it to someone else, and takes it back, he's not able to turn that back into manipulatable matter unless he ate the hat. And so a concept that I generally have for him is that he will like throw an apple up into the air, catch it, and then eat it. Just as like a visual concept of what he's able to do. But anyway, I think a lot of my stories have come from this kind of forced creativity. And I think it's a super powerful tool because I love problem solving and I love the creative process behind problem solving, and I think it's the best way to create an interesting story. And even better, there's lots of different ways that you're able to go about solving that problem for new, different creative ways. But anyway, that's all I have to say for right now. I'm sure it's all a bunch of gibberish, but thanks for walking. Thanks for walking with me. Bye.